Today we've got a cool discussion happening between Taylor and Connor Hewson, who joined us just over a year ago now. So it's a pretty exciting story, and hard to believe it's already been a year. Both it feels like time has gone by fast, but also that we've known them for a lot longer than we have already. It's kind of a cool double-edged sword there. It's probably not even the right expression, but but it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Cameron, I think you had the first conversation with Taylor and Connor before they. I mean, like the first contact, well before they joined PWL.
This must be almost 2 years ago now, guys.
I think it was. Yeah, over 2 years.
Yeah.
How did it start? What did it look like?
I think what was interesting is we reached out to Cameron just to get his advice on some things. We were looking at some different dealers and had been looking at the next chapter of our business and that type of thing. And so it was interesting. We always kind of saw from afar what was going on through the podcast and just reaching out to some other team members over time. And we went into that meeting hoping to get some advice. And I still can hear Cameron saying, well, maybe you should join us. And I think it was just interesting timing with how everything was unfolding with PWL and us, and how it wasn't really an intentional kind of talk about integrating or coming together.
Was that even an option you guys had considered?
I was going to ask you the same thing. Was that even an option that you had considered, or did you just come up with that in the initial contact? Because it seemed like it was sort of it almost like we all kind of like, well, this would be clearly there's a connection here. And I think it had been on your guys' radar to shift and start to grow like this. But because from us, it was not.
We were deep in discussions with, our good friends at One Digital at that time, right? Okay. I remember telling you to kind of be patient. So it was increasingly on our minds. But you're right, Taylor. I mean, it was just such an obvious fit, from philosophy to character to even sharing of jokes and whatnot. It was just such a good fit. And that's proven to be very true over the past year.
Yeah. I remember like going back 5, 6, 7 years, even just looking at the PWL website and thinking, this is what I want to create. This is what I don't even know if I was thinking this is what I want to be a part of. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could create this type of firm, the type of approach they're taking, the content they're producing, this idea of markets work and planning being the center of a advisor client relationship. And so it's kind of like one of the questions Ben, you were going to ask us is just like, when does it hit you? And it almost still hasn't, because it's a bit of it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. So I don't think we thought it was an option. Back to your first question. Like we didn't think it was on the radar. And when you brought that up, it tweaked our interest clearly. And then that kicked off a whole year of soul searching and due diligence, and which seems like a dream now. But
I think we also met with I think we had met with 5 different dealers at that point, and we kind of found a similar themes across all of them. So it was also just an interesting timing for us to talk as you were considering the inorganic side, and we were kind of stuck with, which direction should we go. I thought that was just interesting timing, and I think what One Digital's brought to this, and as soon as they came into the process with us, their clear experience in this and all of that, it's just interesting how all of that unfolded as it did. And I think that also just makes, and I've had a discussion with some advisors outside of the firm, that it just becomes like this unique kind of thing that's I almost think of it in my head as 2 groups. You've got kind of the dealer change kind of next chapter, where you've got now this unique opportunity here. So it's almost like these 2 paths of why I'm usually encouraging people to at least reach out to us because of that.
Can you contrast what life is like here compared to what you said was common from most other dealers?
Well, I think that's to say, and Connor mentioned speaking to other dealers, and what I found is that the common theme was, how do we make life better for you, the advisor? Compensation, recruitment incentives, ease of doing business and that kind of thing. It was so focused on that, which is, not, and that's kind of where we were focused. That's why we initially started on this road was we need to, if we want to keep growing, so we reached a certain level of capacity that I don't think we could maintain. So we thought, well, how do we grow? Well, okay, let's look for some better technology that might make us more efficient. And then when it came time to start and to talk to Cam and the rest of the folks at PWL, it was clear what they were building was, and the conversations we were having were different. They were more geared around the client. What is in the best interest of the client, and how do we reach more people in Canada with this idea of markets work, planning first mentality? And so that was to me the clear difference. That it was removed. We were not unimportant as the advisor. Obviously, we had a business that we had built, and that was a strong consideration. But the focus was on what's in the best interest of the client, and how do we do things better for them.
Oh. Curious, can you just share like what life was like before PWL and explain kind of the benefits and the challenges of working in an independent practice?
Yes, I think it's just, I kind of felt like looking back now, the life before then, just kind of to have the time to, and I've chatted with some of the team members on the planners on the PWL team, and then sharing our experience over the past year, and how we've almost kind of come up with we've almost had just a different job entirely, which is why this year has been challenging in the way that we've learned so much, because we can focus on the advice side of things and not get wrapped up in everything else. And I found Taylor and I would always come up with ideas and kind of really, like, whether it's systems or changes to technology, and then we get pulled into a client thing. So we'd have, like, maybe some steps and ideas of how to work things, and then you'd get pulled away. To the point where I felt like I had to structure my days where, like, before I even turned on any of the business stuff, that I was just going to do client work for the first 3 hours when my brain was the freshest. And now here it's like you're doing that all day, and then also the collaboration with teammates here. And I think the advisors I've talked to outside of the firm since we've joined, I don't think that's completely understood how the collaboration is here. And it's just, you're pulling each other into meetings, whether that's to take notes or talk about cases, or and there's no ego involved or worry about taking the client, because we all share the same clients. I had an experience recently where I had a new radiology client that I ended up passing off to a planner because it was a better fit. What other firm would do that? Where you're just like, hey, this is a better fit for you. So I kind of think of it as just kind of overwhelmed with all of those other things, and now it's more focused, I would say. And that's why the learning curve this year, like the amount I've learned in 1 year, has been enormous. And so it's been fun and kind of humbling at the same time, I would say.
And I think focused is the right word, because if I look back to what energized Connor and I, it would be coming out of a really cool meeting with say a new prospect or a client, where we've had this discussion and we've kind of come to a resolution and the clients are leaving happy. We would kind of come out of those meetings fired up. And it almost felt like, I can't believe that was my job. That was super fun. The clients got a lot of value out of it. And then you'd have contrast that with conversations around, what bookkeeping software should we be using? Or, we've got to get a job description together for hiring an associate. What does that look like? And I mean, those were all parts of running a business, and we could do them, but it didn't come easy, and it didn't fire us up. Whereas now we are so focused on, I was actually thinking about the podcasts and books and just things that I'm paying attention to especially the last 6 months as we kind of fully transitioned. It's stuff around delivering really good financial advice. It's not reading a book about, how to have a great HR culture. I mean, I'm interested in that stuff, but now I'm doing that along with a team, and we've got people looking after it that they get as excited about that as I do about doing financial planning with clients. And so we're all kind of doing our best work, our genius work, at the same time working toward the same goal.
When you're talking to kind of in all these different areas, it almost seems funny to me in a way that we actually were doing all those things.
So is that what made you better, or is there other things going on here that helped you guys improve your game?
it's still like, it's like improving. The stuff I'm learning is every day. And I mean, I've been doing this 17 plus years. And I'm like, I'm getting a crash course in just all these intricate things that maybe I don't necessarily see in client relationships, but I think it's definitely, it is more reps. I mean, we are, Connor and I are doing more prospect and lead meetings and just client meetings in the last, like, just even through the summer and in the spring, like prospect meetings. I've probably done 20 of them, and I would do maybe 5 or so in a year, at TCM. And so just the repetition of every single week, you're seeing something new. It's a new conversation. You're learning something new. And so that's, I think it's just honing that skill, right? And you're just so focused on that. So that to me is, I don't feel like I've gotten better at it. I'm just like, I'm in the process right now of honing those skills and sharpening the knife, as you say.
It's interesting. I had this experience recently with Kate, who's on our team, who's an associate wealth advisor, came into our meeting. He came into one of my meetings and actually led it with a client that's been with us for 10 years. And the client texted me after saying, wow, she was phenomenal. That was a great meeting. And then I provided Kate with feedback after the meeting. And I realized all the feedback I was giving her, or a lot of it, had come from like 5 other teammates. And so I told her, I'm like, these sound like my ideas, and I don't want to take credit for them because I've kind of taken different things. And I also encouraged her to also stick to the things that she likes about the way she delivers advice. And I think that's what's great here as well from being an entrepreneur. The spirit behind that is being able to, I notice every advisor here has a bit of their own, like how they deliver advice and how they think about advice is slightly different, and they deliver it in different ways, but we can all kind of take pieces of that from each other to make something even greater. So it's just an interesting experience there recently. And I think really highlights the team beehive kind of thing mentality here.
You two were the 3rd generation of a wealth management business. And obviously that's not an easy decision to walk away from. Like, what are the things that stood out as like really great at TCM, and what are the things that you might have been afraid of losing based on life before PWL?
But I don't think I don't think we walked away. I still see this as an evolution of 30, 40 years in the making. I mean, to my grandfather and my dad's credit, when I look back to their careers, they were never afraid of changing things. I mean, they went from, selling insurance with Sun Life in a career shop kind of mentality to, my dad was a part of one of the first producer groups in the country that went out on their own, which is sort of a crazy idea in the 90s. The introduction of mutual funds, and then, my dad being kind of set up and chugging along. And here comes 2 young kids who are saying, hey, we need to start using ETFs and index funds and doing more like solidified planning. And to their credit, they're basically like, that's interesting. I don't really understand it, but here's kind of the reins. This is super cool. And so I think they've always never, and I have noticed that about Cameron ever since our first conversation. It was all about sort of the next generation, not to remove yourself from it, but just, this is what we're working towards. And we don't know what it's going to look like. We know change, it can be hard, but it's also can be very good. So I don't see it as, I see it as an evolution. But Connor, maybe you want to speak to kind of the good and the bad of TCM and what life is like now versus then.
I just think it's interesting. Taylor and I were reflecting on this the past week as we were just chatting. And when we moved to IROC and using index funds like 10 years or whatever it was, everyone kind of looked at us that we talked to like we were little nuts. And then we kind of got that same, some of those same things when we were talking about what we were doing here with PWL. So we've kind of been conditioned to think that that's really like the good way to go.
Well,
but
we're all conditioned for that, to being little nuts, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think what was interesting, just also in Taylor and I's reflections, just reflecting recently with each other about this stuff, is we kind of felt like the fear was the risk to our personal lives. Everything else kind of like stacked up rationally. We had like this emotional and this rational decision, and the rational part became like very clear. And Taylor went to like future proof, for example, and like what's happening in the US is kind of this is a normal thing in what we've done here. But little things like that, like all the different due diligence things that we looked at, talking to all the team members at PWL, the rational side was just kind of like, this seems like obvious to us. So then it became like the emotional and the personal side. And that is, to me, it's like the things I really enjoyed is the autonomy, the space to be creative, those types of things. That's part of entrepreneurship is great, but it also has or running your own thing, but it has the cost of pulling actually taking those things into action. I would say Taylor and I are really good dreamers, but then it's the action and that type of thing. So I would say that Taylor and I both agreed that we felt like the risk going into this was the personal side. The business, the rational side was kind of straightforward. And I remember Taylor calling me once, like, "Hey, I'm at the grocery store right now. Like, do you think we'll be able to do this at PWL? Like, go to the grocery store, like just to pick up some things, and then come back to work."
There was this fear of this, not based in anything that we were hearing or anything like that, but it's this idea, and we've got this from other people we've talked to. It's like you're joining this big corporate organization, bureaucracy, and I remember it's funny now to scroll through the website and see all the faces. I remember doing that 2 years ago, being like, "There's a lot of people here. Like, there's like people in operations and technology." Like, and now I think of like, "Oh, these are all our colleagues and friends now." But now you get to learn the things that they're doing and they're passionate about, and they do so well that we talk a lot about you don't know what you don't know, and this is why we get hired as financial advisors, because clients are looking for that objective. Like, what am I missing? I think I'm doing these things right, but like, is there something I could be doing differently? And once we saw what was being created here, you mentioned future proof, going down to the US and hearing, getting some FaceTime with Ben and a few others from the team, but also just hearing what was the conversations down there, the presenters, this idea of team just kept coming up constantly. And I remember calling Connor from there. It's like, that's all anybody's talking about, is doing this together and trying to drive and build these businesses. And I mean, team is a word that's thrown around there, but this is truly a place where people collaborate, and we want to get better, and we want to make each other better, and ultimately, with the client's experience in mind. So
it's interesting you mentioned the team, Taylor. Like, you look at the people on the website; it's a lot of people, but when you understand who these people are and what they do and how it's all for this oneness, you can't imagine life without them.
No, for sure. No,
you're running two different, when you're with a dealer. And again, I don't want to discredit any of the dealers. They're great people and great businesses, but you really are running two businesses. Someone's running a dealer and someone's running a financial planning or an advisory practice. And they're two separate entities with two different objectives and goals. I think a lot of the time they're different. And if they're not different, the dealer has to deal with 1,400, Taylor and Connors, who all want different things and want to deliver advice in different ways. Whereas we've just combined, and that's how I've been explaining to clients when they're sort of confused about the change. Like, hey, remember our dealer, and then we had our TCM company. Well, PWL is just those two things together, and we can do a lot more better work that road.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It feels, and I don't know if this is the remote side of work, but the team also feels very, like, if we put all 150 of us in an office, maybe it'd feel bigger, but it does feel a lot closer when you're the remote work and that type of thing. And I think it just naturally feels closer knit here.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just something I was pondering.
Being remote actually makes you feel closer.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that recently. I'm not sure why that's on my mind, but it does feel that way. I gotta take 3 flights to get to you, Cameron.
But we all chat reasonably often, right? So it does feel, and it's such an open, transparent environment.
Yeah. I think just to close that point on just the personal element before the things that that element of it that felt like was the only risk and worry. We were driving home from the cottage last week, and unprovoked, my wife Lindsay said that the last like 6 months, how I seem like my old self, and that's related to dad jokes and less stress. And she just said that I look lighter, and that's how I feel. So it's interesting to get that feedback from her, because that's how it felt before and after. I feel like every month I'm here, you just see the progress of all these teammates. And even when I go away for a week, you miss, like, you watch a recorded version of one of these things that you missed, and you see the progress over a week. And I don't know if we just wouldn't have been able to get there, I guess, on our own for sure.
When you told your existing clients about joining PWL, what actually worked to keep their trust through the transition, and did anything about explaining it surprise you?
I think a lot of the legwork for that was actually just we've been doing that for the last decade and more. I mean, that is about building trust and open transparency with your clients, such that this didn't really, even though it may have come out of left field a bit, I don't, I think I assumed that going into this, but it was a nice reminder to see as we went through these conversations that there was a lot of trust. Um, I think that what resonated with people was that we weren't going anywhere. There was a lot of fear that we were just going to kind of get swallowed up and they're going to, end up seeing someone different. Even in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I know you're working with Taylor and he's your person, but I'm about to introduce you slowly to other people potentially that you're going to love and do great work. And it's also making me better. So, providing that reassurance that we're not going anywhere. This is re-energizing us. This isn't like a closing of a chapter by any means. And we kind of did the classic, what's staying the same, what's going to change. And for the most part, once those few things were out of the way, our clients were congratulatory. They saw that we were excited about this. And I just had a phone call with a friend the other day, actually, who I'd done some work in the past with, and she asked about how it was going. And I just kind of explained what I've been explaining here. And she's, oh, okay. And she's a sharp person, CEO of a insurance lending company. And she said, oh, okay. I didn't want to ask. Because she kind of assumed that this was probably not gone well, or maybe wasn't under within our control to do that. So once those things were out of the way, it was congratulations. And I'm sure a lot of them were like, we'll wait and see as everything gets, set up and transferred and over. And of course, there's little hiccups as you do, but you handle those again with openness and transparency. And we've retained more than all of our. There's no one that didn't come. And there's people that were on the fence that were not clients, just people in our network who we've kind of known for a while and knew what we did. And we've actually brought on more business from our natural market after being over here and kind of explaining to them what we've done and who PWL is and what we're trying to work towards. It's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I get this. You guys are now here. You've done this. We would like to become clients. So it's actually generated more business. Well,
it's interesting. There's two people I can think of on the fence that we did some fee only planning work for and that type of thing, who came on and now I can think of one, for example, that have now referred two people to us. So they came on in January, kind of saw what we're up to. So that those were, I think it was a 2-year process of potentially of them being on the fence. So I think sometimes maybe the tools and the things we could showcase there were maybe a bit more of a compelling. But just to add to something that you mentioned, Taylor, is I was actually surprised at how many that all of our clients were actually like really willing to work with us through any hiccups. Like you think you have to make it the smooth as possible, and there's going to be no hiccups, and that's what you try to do. But I found that everyone was really, and maybe this is what surprised us, was they'd worked with us for so long that they valued the advice and the relationship, and they were willing to actually work with us to move the accounts over and that type of thing. So I think that was a bit surprising to me, and that we're the first team to come on with PWL. This is new for both of us. So there's naturally going to be some hiccups that you get better at.
But I also think it's natural to be nervous about it. I think in hindsight, we can feel very confident about this because of how well it's gone.
Yeah.
But we were both, you just never know. You're throwing something new to clients, and you never know. But thankfully, we were all pleasantly surprised.
We also didn't make a lot of changes over, like we were with the same dealer for 11 or 12 years. So it's not like also we were jumping different things, which is helpful. So go ahead, Cal.
You mentioned introducing clients to the team. Do you think the nature of the advice relationship has changed with you guys, but it's also a dynamic in the industry changing about the relationship between the client and the advisor? Like maybe, my thesis is that I think it's changed a bit from, your buddy takes care of my investments to a more still relationship-based, trust-based, but more like technically competent, more proficient, more aware.
I think we have a more informed consumer. And I don't know if that is a bit of AI. I mean, obviously there's been blogs and things like the Rational Reminder and the Canadian Cup Potato out for a long time. And I don't think there was you'd have a lot of people who would DIY and were really into that. But the traction of it, I think, is increasing. And I've just seen this anecdotally with clients that we're meeting with that are of a demographic that maybe hadn't really been asking these questions before and have worked with the same advisor, looking at a quote, I've known this guy for 25 years. I was introduced to him through a friend of a brother or something like that. And he's, managed my money. But now I'm asking questions about, I'm selling a building, or I'm thinking about retirement, or I've got this company, or whatever the question is, and they're not getting answers. And so I think that's what we're really well prepared for is I hope that transition continues and that traction keeps coming on, is that people are asking questions and they're good questions, and they're questions we want to answer. I get fired up when people ask these. It's like, this is great. You're wondering what financial planning was and what we do. The questions you've just asked us is exactly the kind of work that we can help with.
I think it's interesting too. That's, I think, been part of the learning this year for us as financial planners, is that naturally the people that are reaching out to PWL have probably already done a bit more. So I'm curious, our sample compared to the people leads we were getting beforehand. So we definitely, I think, just the questions people are asking and the research they're doing, and the so many different avenues you can consume information and that type of thing now is you can tell people are coming with better questions. I think people always will want and I think this is something Taylor and I had talked about for a long time, is just the human element of it. I don't think that has to be one person or one kind of like star. And I think the technology aspect of it, there's also the experience that someone has with technology now as well. That's important. So I think that's a big reason why it's a more informed consumer. And then how do you use these tools to communicate?
Before PWL, you were with Peak Securities for, I think you said 10 or 12 years. When you're going through the process, did you consider going to a different dealer other than PWL?
Yeah. We had an LOI with another dealer when we talked to Cameron, and at that point he's like, just let me know before you sign it, because I know there is stuff going on with you guys and with One Digital, just in your in your discussions there. So I think we met with 4 or 5 pretty in detail. And I would say this came up a lot, and Taylor and I would mention to each other, I feel like we're getting a lot of great things by making this change. Here's what it's gonna solve. But we're also curious about what things does Peak do well that this other dealer that we're going to find out later, and then does all that stuff kind of average out to being kind of the same experience.
So what were like the reasons or the pain points that came up to start your search, and what did you learn through talking to these other options?
It probably started just because I think we were looking at, like, what does the next decade look like? Connor and I we're not super young. We're not close to retirement either. And, we'd had good growth. We ran this is a story where something was not broken, but we were looking at, if we want to continue to compete and to deliver really good advice over the next 10 years as we grow, how do we do that in the best way? So that's what prompted, I think, the conversations. And I think we started out thinking maybe technology is the answer. We just need some more efficient systems and process, because we were really piecemeal trying to pull the stuff together, CRMs, we were just mashing it all together on our own. You think at the time that takes Connor and I, and that's not valuable work for Connor and Taylor to be doing. So that's probably what got us thinking about it. And that's ultimately, I think, why we ended up with PWL, because this is a firm that is looking at the future of delivering financial advice and expanding that. We've talked a lot about increasing our impact across the country, and both Connor and I wanted to work with more people. We enjoyed our clients. Well, we have great relationships with them. We do good work for them. We wanted to do more of that. And so how do we do that? And that's kind of what prompted it. And then ultimately ended up where we did.
It was probably the tech that kind of that was the first thing we realized, and then there was other areas that we kind of came up with and then I think when we met with PWL, there's just, you realize that there was all these functions of our business that And I think what's surprising, and Taylor mentioned this before, with how many with the dealer model, you've got all these different businesses that are working a bit differently, using their own technologies and feed into dealer technologies. I think of the teams. I was talking to Matt Gore about this the other day. Every team that's joined PWL, we all have similar investment philosophies and beliefs and planning first, all that. And every one of them, Matt had mentioned, has been different in integrating into the team. So I just think how every business that's in there can just even with the same philosophy can be running things differently and coming together and trying to build something with that group is challenging, let alone if you've got all these different businesses that are running different philosophies and value proposition.
And I want to be careful about it. This is not a pure technology play. I mean, what PWL is doing is we've got amazing people doing some great stuff with technology, but really the overarching feeling for us was like, how do we continue to deliver really good financial, but how do we continue to be of value? You know, in the back of your head, it's points, especially with AI and a lot of the robo advice and all that kind of thing, has always been like, can I continue? Am I still of value? Can I justify the fees that we're charging? And that's, I think, the guiding light that we had for what we were going to do the next 10 years.
What part of integration took longer than you expected, and why?
I think we would have liked to have clients come on quicker, like anybody would, right? You'd hear stories of people that have moved, large businesses in the span of like 2 to 3 weeks. But I think that was mostly what we were hearing from other dealers, kind of promising that they could do that. I think that's a fear, because the longer you have kind of in limbo, there's more risk that the clients are not going to be happy and they're going to be left. So it'd be nice if that was quicker, but that was probably my own just expectation. I don't think we weren't hearing that from clients like, hey, when are we doing this?
I think when we came on, one of the challenges that stick out to me was, and the fact that we were the first team joining, is we right out of the gate started meeting, and there's so many leads coming into PWL, we kind of jumped into prospect meetings right away. So I think that's something we learned as the first team, and I know the second team, the third team, that's there. I think there's a 3-month window now before they're meeting prospects. So that's something Taylor and I did right away. So I think we knew it would be a lot to move clients over, but Taylor and I hadn't had that experience in a long time either. So we had an idea of what to expect. And then we started meeting new clients right away, we wanted to contribute to the team. And it was also fun to just get in those meetings, and you're kind of getting pulled in from an interest side of things. So I think that's something we learned together, and was a bit more challenging on the integration side. At the same time, I feel like the amount I learned in how PWL has taken all the research and thoughts from the years and integrated it into meeting with prospects and delivering financial advice and communicating financial advice. It was so fun at the same time that, there was a good learning period, to kind of a crash course to kind of getting into things.
Yeah. Anytime there were challenges, we were both, Connor and I would say like, okay, and so we might have been like venting to each other about something that was going on. And it's like, but at the same time, would you have changed anything? It's like, well, no, we're still having fun. And that just kept us moving forward.
Yeah.
I was talking to an potential advisor yesterday, and I said to him, great guy, I said, for the right person, this is the absolute best place to be. For the wrong person, this is the worst place to be. Mm-hmm. How would you guys describe those two advisor profiles?
I think it's a lot in spirit. I think Taylor and I always just took a salary out of TCM. It wasn't sales oriented, TCM being our previous company. So I think that would be challenging. I thought it was interesting, the financial side and the comp side for us and this deal and coming to PWL was like probably the 8th inning of everything. I think there's that element that if you can't think of coming onto a team and wanting to contribute and share in kind of the growth of it together, I think that would be challenging. And I think there's an element of control, I think, as well, being willing to give up some control is maybe a part of that too, being kind of I remember Paul Phillip, who joined, he said he realized that he didn't want to be Wayne Gretzky, he just wanted to play on the Oilers. I think that's a good way a good analogy. Where I think
But you also said you're objectively better planners too. So do you give up control to become a better planner? Is that
well, that's just it. You have control and autonomy, but you have control and you have control over everything, which means you're responsible for everything. And so that's, I think, exactly it. We've been able to, it's like you're going out every day to train for whatever you're doing. And you just spend, like, I think I've been watching a lot of tennis lately, and you think these guys, these pros, guys and girls, you look at what their life is like and you think they show up for the event and they're playing tennis. Like, well, I go play tennis. I could do that. And you look at what's involved and everything is geared toward, they just focus on that thing. They've got other people around them that are helping with, their nutrition and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I've kind of been on tour as a pro financial planner the last 6 months. And so objectively, yeah. And I think it's just because it's not that I was doing things wrong before. I'm just getting better quicker from being exposed to different ways of thinking, different ways of applying solutions to client problems. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. The reality is there's a lot of great independent advisors out there. But if you're in a small independent practice, you are restricted by your own ceiling because you are required to go out and learn on your own and find mentors or partners to learn from. Whereas like we have a large team internally where you can easily collaborate with. Not that you can't get better outside. Like there's tons of great advisors outside of PWL. It just makes it easy internally to do it.
It's that thing of having, at the same time, contact with the spirit. You do have to have a growth and open mindset, because it's kind of like, well, I wonder what, like, if we all like want to think, well, like, we're doing a good job. It's like, can you imagine what you could do if you were even better? And I think that's sometimes hard for us to acknowledge that, like, maybe I'm not at the top of where I could be, but of course, none of us are. We could always be getting better. So that kind of mindset is like, I wonder what it could be like. I wonder how good I could get. By joining this team. That's, I think, one key thing. Cameron, right from the beginning, you kept on reiterating the first thing you guys need to figure out is whether you want to be a part of this team. Without that, everything else is sort of irrelevant. You need to decide that. So, you kept on saying that, and that's what we sat with, in between our calls was, do we want to be a part of this team and do this kind of thing together? And then, as Connor said, once that's sorted out, then the details all fall into play. I mean, I talked to someone, or we've talked to many people through the due diligence process, but one was a, well-respected industry veteran. And they were saying, first of all, if you were in the US, you wouldn't even be like wondering if this is something you should be doing, because it's just a common thing. People coming together to collaborate it's a huge difference. Secondly, if you're thinking financially, there are paths to financial success either route. Like I don't think anything along the way was kind of like, well, we could make more money this way or this way. Because I think there's arguments to be made on both sides though, but it's a lot of like what ifs. So I think, but the one thing he said that stuck with me was like, but also remember, you're talking about all the money you could make running your own shop and capturing all that value that you're creating for the company. Which comes with work, by the way. That doesn't just get handed to you. You have to create profit in your books. But hey, remember, there's a path where you could be just as financially successful joining a larger team and doing it this way too. So that kind of made me feel like, okay, good. Financial wise, I can be looked after both ways, which is a consideration. You've got a family and financial goals in yourself. So if you can, I kind of put that to the side and then focused on more of, okay, what kind of work do we want to do? How do we want to do it?
We were never motivated that way, though. We got more fired up by solving a client problem, or
we did, but you can't ignore the financial aspect of it. For sure. And I don't think we did. We weren't kind of completely blind to that, because some of the comments I've gotten from other advisors have been like, well, what about, like, almost the first question is like, what are they paying you? Like that's not the right. It's not the right question. I haven't really explained in a cohesive way what we've done, if that's kind of the first question you're coming back with me at. But
it's interesting, because it is a common question, and I think it's just nature of the industry. Like the wealth industry brings opportunity for high revenue, high cash flow, and the perception, especially in Canada, is that if you are an independent owner, then the sky's the limit, which has worked out well. But there's also been a 15, 20-year pretty good bull run. Markets are near all-time highs. the last big decline we saw was in 2008. Like, what does that mean? Like, is it going to continue forever? You still have the risk as an independent business owner. And one of the things I always talk about is, as an owner, there's two components of your compensation. It's, you're paid for what you do as an advisor, but also paid for what you own. And the portion where you're paid for what you own is you're taking on all that risk, you get all the benefit and upside. But if things go wrong, if you upset a large client and people follow, if there's a cybersecurity breach, if there's a rogue employee, or there's all kinds of different scenarios that could play out. And that's a path that works well for some people, but there's trade-offs to both approaches, for sure.
Well, and things have changed too. Things have changed. So like just with tech, like I just think of 2020, like the amount of change in technology, like this probably wouldn't have even happened without going through this ability to do remote work and that type of thing with clients and with teammates. So, and you mentioned cybersecurity. That was something we had always been like, how do we deal with that as a small firm? And I know and then with the size of PWL, now what we have with One Digital, everything's kind of leveled up there, and such an important, are very important things to clients. There's like technology on the security side and that type of thing. And then there's also the technology on client experience. And it's interesting here how we've built out this client experience virtually using these tools, because people will pay for, we've seen that with DIY investors coming over to work with us. People will pay for an experience, and it can be virtual, which is interesting.
Yep.
Who would have thought?
Okay, guys, what does PWL do internally that you wish more of the industry did? And for someone entering the industry in the next couple of years, what do you think will be different about this job by then?
I think there's things that we're doing that the industry in small parts and pockets is doing. And that is this idea that, and Connor just mentioned it, is that people are willing to pay for good financial advice and a great relationship with an advisor who they know is kind of in their corner. And we've seen that. I keep looking for okay, all this talk about AI and robo advice, as I mentioned, I keep waiting for more clients to be like, I'm not paying you anymore. I'm going and doing it on my own. I keep waiting for that shoe to drop. And it's like, it does, at least this point, is not happening. And I think what we're doing, we talked a lot about technology, is yes, we're building great technology, but it's still in service of having a human delivering human-centered advice. And I think that doesn't seem to be going away. We don't think of it because we're in this industry. We've grown up with it. We feel comfortable around money and the markets and the financial plan and all that kind of stuff. But the vast majority of people are insecure about money, have questions, are feeling of being lost. And to know that they've got someone in their corner that they trust and who's clearly thinking about this in a thoughtful way. So I think that's what we're doing internally, is we're building great tools and great systems and a great experience for the client. And ultimately, I tell younger advisors, and not necessarily younger, but just more junior advisors, that you have to remember we're in the hospitality business. We are in a client retail type service role. Yep. We're there to serve the client and give them a really good experience. And I think we can sometimes get lost in we've got, all the greatest tools and we've got the optimal blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, we all decide what to do with our money, and clients have decided to pay fees for our advice and experience with us. And I think that needs to be the guiding light. And with this team, it 100% is. And everybody feels a sense of ownership around the client, which is amazing. Everyone from, our data team to content creators to leadership, everybody has well, how is this going to be viewed by the client? And is this going to be of value to the client? And I know that's maybe that's more kind of a buzzword, and everyone is geared by that, but we've just got all systems firing for that objective, which I haven't seen in other setups.
I think it's what's different here too is the collaboration across all functions and the platform, and the fact that everything's reinvested back into the platform in a very intentional way. That I think that's very different. And I also think we also haven't figured all of this stuff out. We're working together as a team of 150 plus to solve all these things. So I think if I was coming into the industry, I think a recent Rational Reminder episode that Ben, you were on as an AMA, I think just having meetings with people and asking lots of questions and finding people that think like you do and maybe that don't think like you do, and really coming at it from that approach. And but also, I guess, also talking to people that are willing to listen and hear your thoughts and that type of things and important.
But if you share our beliefs and you want to be part of a team, there aren't a lot of options in Canada.
No, and so maybe that's what will hopefully will change. Maybe that this idea of what people are going to learn that we're doing internally is that, you know what, I know I go back and forth. This is like, well, you could create a firm, on your own. You could go do this on your own, which I still am. I think I'm convinced you can do that. In a way, though, we may be moving toward a place where like you're not going to be able to do this on your own. At least, maybe there's a certain niche type of business you can run where it's very clean and you're providing good service and advice. But I think it's going to get harder and harder to compete. I hope it does get harder and harder to compete when you're not working in a team environment, and not a team of like advisors where you got like 8 advisors and 2 support staff, like a team of people that are on all aspects of the business, operations to delivery advice to tech and all that kind of stuff working together. So I think, and as someone coming into the industry, I would be trying to find a place to join a team and get an apprenticeship of some kind, as opposed to most times when you enter this industry, you're kind of, it's sort of you're handed a kind of a sales platform and is like, okay, go, like, do it. Whereas we're bringing people in as we're going to show you how to do this right, and you're going to learn. You're going to be in client situations. You're going to see and have models for how to do, answer certain client questions or deliver this advice. And I just think that's going to be harder and harder to do as a smaller operation. I mean, obviously, that's what we believe because we shifted those gears.
Yeah. As I listen, like I can understand why someone within 5 years of retirement would choose this path, but you guys look fairly young and could have a long career. So why would you choose to sell and join a larger firm at this point in your career?
It's interesting because I've kind of surprised myself in that this is always how this is unfolded.
Yep.
And I think it's just, we've always been willingness to see what's out there, and always thinking about from a client standpoint, what's gonna be the best for them, and thinking through that lens. Again, we've talked about the financial aspect of things, I think, comes into that. But it was, like I said before, I think that was the risk in this, I think, is Taylor, I'm fumbling a bit here, but I think like it's I'm glad it's worked out.
Pass me the ball, Connor.
I'll pass you the rock.
Ben, the work you've been doing around trying to get advisors to think about their business as if they were advising themselves, I think is really key. And that's kind of how we were trying to think about it. Both financial planners, we were running financial models and projections, making certain assumptions. And I think that's, we knew that this was going to be, we think this could be the way to go. I think there's a certain amount of weight that's been lifted off that I didn't think I anticipated. Thinking about the next, I'm 40 years old. You use your classic sort of 60, 65-year-old retirement. So, okay, I've got 20 odd years. I just think of the things that I would need to accomplish the next 20 years to make sure that TCM was successful, that I could potentially pass it on to somebody. All of like just a basket list of things that I need to look after, or would have had to look after. And it's not like I don't look at it as like walk away from something that we've maybe pivoted. And I feel there's a certain amount of stress that is gone that I can then redirect into the stuff that's valuable, which is being there for clients, and not worrying about the cybersecurity incident or the new thing that's on the market that clients are asking about. And I got to go like spend this afternoon reading about it, listening to podcasts about it, making sure I understand so I can answer client questions. We're just in that all day. So, I mean, we both did surprise ourselves, but of course, now looking back on it, it's like, what were we even thinking? Considering,
I think it's the compelling aspect of it that it's so compelling that we were willing to do that, I guess, to kind of, instead of continue on kind of building our PWL on our own. It made too much sense to us, again, from a rational standpoint. So I think that's why we were willing to give up whatever that other road would have looked like. Is how I would summarize it. Just was too compelling to us.
How do you see your role in 5 years? Like, we're growing a lot. I know, Taylor, you and I have talked about your dreams for Regina. Where do you see this going?
That's I see PWL being a household name that people know about and want to learn more about. Not those that are just engaged and thinking about money and personal. I'm thinking about the people who are not thinking about this stuff every day. And I would love to grow our business in our city and our province, not just with clients, but also advisors and people coming into the industry that are looking for a place to learn because they want to get in. I've had calls this week from people who've just reached out on LinkedIn and like, I'm graduating with a super competent people. Like I'm graduating. I think of myself as 25 years old, competing with some of the people who reached out to me. Like, well, I've got a master's in finance and I got a degree in accounting and a CPA and I'm a CFA charter holder. And I'm like, okay. Like I can imagine being myself at 25 competing against some of these guys. And they're like, we want to go into the wealth management industry. We like working with people. We want to help solve these problems. And so that kind of fires me up because I know we've got a great model for that. But also for clients to come to as well. So I think we've been slower, I think, on the prairies to adopt even things like fee for service financial planning or this idea of fee transparency and things like that. So I would like to kind of bring this idea to more people, even if it's not with PWL. If it pops up another shop that's like doing the same thing in a competitive way, I think that's great for the business and great for the consumers of financial advice.
Taylor, you're talking about two different things here, which I find interesting, which I agree with, is the ability to help more people. And then also, I was talking to Phil Briggs on our team about this, just the value he gets out of working with the associate wealth advisors and wealth advisors on his team and creating an option there to come into the wealth management world without having to call all the, to build it and have more of that sales path towards maybe getting to the place of running a firm like this, which we were very fortunate to be able to start with a group of clients and could kind of map that out for us in that way. So I think that's what we hope for Saskatchewan and for just my own, the spirit behind this for my own career is just the ability to help more people and also maybe help more planners as well.
But the fun part of it is, Cam, you asked, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, that's why I keep thinking like this entrepreneurial spirit that I've always had, this idea of kind of having an impact on what you're doing and seeing the value of it translated. I still have that today. And so I almost don't even really know what 5 years looks like, which is part of like, there's still risk involved. There's still entrepreneurship involved over here because there's so much opportunity. So in a way I don't know. And that's kind of fun. That's super exciting.
What's been your biggest surprise over the past year?
The fear we had going into this was this idea of in our minds, losing autonomy, losing control of a schedule. I've got 2 little kids and the ability to just, pick them up from school and go to just little things like this. That I think we had a lot of fear that we were going into an organization, not because of anything that PWL said or everything was pointing the other way, but this is where the emotion of fear comes from. Rational goes out the window. So I think that's been the biggest pleasant surprise is like, that's not even on the radar. It's just, in many ways, I'm doing the same thing I was doing 2 years ago. I'm just doing less of the stuff that I was not good at. And I'm more fired up.
You mentioned this on LinkedIn recently, like to go to a Friday advisor meeting where we're all meeting on Conquest to share ideas and that type of thing. I'd say that's something you mentioned as being surprising has been surprising.
I don't want to miss that. I can't miss that.
Oh my God, it's the highlight of the week.
Yeah.
Before it's like, a pre-scheduled meeting that I got to attend to. I've never had to do that in my life. And it's now it's like, well, I can't miss that one. It's like, well, you don't know what you don't know. And
I would say for my side of things, just I feel energized, and I think that's part of the entrepreneurial aspects that you're talking about, Taylor. Is it's surprised by being energized and just the amount of friendships and stuff. It's just been a lot of fun from a personal side of things. which we didn't really think about a whole lot.
Yeah, we're having a great time.
Yeah.
Great time.
Cool. Well, this was a fantastic discussion, guys. Appreciate you sharing your story and your viewpoint. And if anybody watching has any questions or want to follow up for a discussion, we're always open to chat anytime.